She said it like a rule, but it sounded like something else. "Return your book," she told me, soft voice, measured, but her eyes didn't match the words. The library was closing. Everyone else had gone. The lights had that end-of-day dim, the kind that made the air feel heavier than it should. I stood at the counter, the book in my hand, pretending to read the blurb on the back while she watched me not doing it. Her name was Clara. Mid-40s, maybe older, though it didn't matter. Everything about her was precise, her words, her posture, the way she tucked a strand of hair behind her ear like she didn't want anyone to notice she cared about it. But I did. I noticed everything. I'd been returning the same book for weeks now, letters from an unknown woman, always forgetting to drop it in the slot, always waiting until she was there behind the counter. She must have known. She always scanned it slowly, the barcode beep stretching into silence. "You know, you could just keep it," she said once, weeks ago. "And miss this?" I had answered before thinking. Her lips twitched, not a smile, but something trying to be won and deciding against it. Tonight, though, she wasn't teasing. Her blouse sleeves were rolled up, a pen stuck in her hair, faint lines by her mouth that only made her face softer somehow. The clock ticked behind us. I could hear it too clearly. "You're here late again," she said. "So are you," I replied. She looked up, finally meeting my eyes. That's when the air changed. Her gaze held longer than it should have. It wasn't just curiosity anymore, it was like she was looking through me, searching for something I didn't know I had. "Why that book?" she asked quietly. "It feels like it's written for someone who missed their timing," I said. Her breath caught, just slightly, and then she nodded like that was the wrong thing to have said and yet exactly what she'd wanted to hear. I handed it to her. Our fingers touched. Not a brush, more like neither of us moved fast enough to make it brief. Her skin was warm, and her hand stayed where it was a second too long. The kind of second you can't take back. She cleared her throat. "You shouldn't, what? Stay so late." But she didn't move away. I could smell her perfume, faint, something clean but old-fashioned, like paper and warmth. She glanced down at the counter, pretending to look for the book stamp, though it was right in front of her. Her hand trembled slightly as she picked it up. The stamp hit the page, thunk, and she exhaled. "Due next Friday," she said. I nodded. "Guess I'll see you then." "You always do." The words came out softer than she meant them to. I saw her realize it, saw her look down, suddenly all business again. I stepped back, just enough to make her feel the space. Then she said it again, barely above a whisper this time, "Return your book." Her eyes flicked up. Something flickered there, regret, curiosity, maybe both. And then, just as I opened my mouth to say something, the door behind me creaked open. We both turned. The janitor's cart rolled in, wheels squeaking against the tile. When I looked back at her, Clara's face had already changed, polite again, careful. But her hand was still resting on the stamped page, pressing it down like she was holding something in place. "Good night," she said. And for the first time, I realized I didn't want to leave. The next Friday, I came early, too early, and pretended I had nowhere else to be. Clara was shelving returns behind the front desk, sleeves rolled up again, her glasses slipping down her nose. She didn't see me right away, and I watched her for a moment, how careful she was with each book, how she traced the spine before sliding it into place. Like it mattered where every story went. When she finally noticed me, there was a flicker, surprise, maybe something else. "You're early," she said, pushing her glasses up. "Didn't want to keep you waiting," I said, and then realized how it sounded. She smiled, small, tight. I wasn't waiting. There was always that edge in her voice, like she wanted to draw a line but couldn't quite find where to put it. I leaned on the counter. "You ever read that book yourself?" She hesitated. "Years ago." "Did you like it?" I didn't, at the time, she said, then paused, eyes on the barcode scanner. But now. I understand it more. She didn't say what part she understood. I didn't ask. There was something about her stillness, the way she'd stop moving when she was thinking, like she had to hold the thought in place so it wouldn't fall apart. I learned she used to teach literature before she took this job. Said it was quieter here. Said she liked the routine. But when she talked about her past, her voice thinned, like the words were too close to something that still stung. She wore no ring. Sometimes she mentioned "we" when talking about her house or her weekends, but the "we" never had a name attached. I wanted to ask, about him, whoever he was, but didn't. Instead, I handed her the book again. You keep coming back to the same one, she said. I'm a slow reader. Or just stubborn. Her fingers brushed mine as she took it. The static between our hands felt louder than it should. For a moment, we both looked down, at the same spot on the counter where our hands had almost met last time. She broke the silence first. People talk, you know. About books. About people who linger too long in small places. Her tone was light, but her eyes weren't. I don't care what they say, I murmured. She looked away. You should. The clock ticked again, always that clock. It filled the air between us like it was timing something fragile. When I moved around the counter to help her stack a pile of books, she didn't stop me. Our shoulders brushed. The faint scent of her shampoo, lavender, maybe, caught in the air. She shifted closer to reach the higher shelf, her sleeve grazing my arm. Neither of us said a word. When she turned, her face was only inches from mine. Her breath touched my cheek, warm, unsteady. I could lose my job, she whispered, not pulling away. Then tell me to stop coming. Her lips parted, but no sound came. Her hand hovered near my chest, as if she meant to push me back but couldn't remember how. The lights flickered overhead, the automatic timer, reminding us the library was closing. She finally stepped back, slow, eyes still on me. Next Friday, she said. And for the first time, her voice didn't sound like a rule, the library smelled like rain that Friday. Wet pavement, dust, old paper. The kind of air that makes everything quieter. Clara was at the desk again, reading something she wasn't really reading. Her fingers traced the edge of a page without turning it. When I walked in, she didn't look up right away, but I saw her notice, the smallest shift in her shoulders. You're early, she said, same words as before, but softer this time. Couldn't stay away, I said, and this time I didn't try to hide it. She closed the book slowly, eyes staying on the cover. You shouldn't say things like that. Why not? Because I might start believing them. That silence after, it stretched. Outside, thunder rolled somewhere far off. The lights hummed faintly overhead. I took a step closer to the counter. She didn't move back. How's your week been? I asked. She shrugged. Quiet. Always is, isn't it? Not lately, she said, then caught herself, as if she'd said too much. The door clicked open behind me. My heart jumped. A man's voice called out, Clara. You still here? She stiffened instantly. Back here, she called, stepping away from the counter. Her voice was steady, practiced. She looked at me once, sharp, pleading, don't move. A man in his 50s appeared around the corner, gray hair, work jacket, holding a clipboard. Did you sign off on the maintenance order? Yes, she said quickly. It's in the drawer. He barely glanced at me, just nodded, and disappeared into the back again. We stood there in the heavy quiet that followed. Her hands trembled slightly when she picked the book up again. She didn't look at me. That was the custodian, she said, unnecessarily. I figured. Her lips pressed together. You shouldn't, I know, I said. You don't have to say it. She finally looked up, and something cracked in her eyes. Not anger. Just the weight of too many almosts. I wasn't supposed to, she stopped. I promised myself I wouldn't blur lines again. Again. The word hung between us like a shadow. You think this is a mistake? I asked. I think it's dangerous. For who? For both of us. She turned slightly, meaning to leave, but I reached out, just a reflex, and my fingers brushed her wrist. She froze. The pulse there was fast. I could feel it against my thumb. Clara, I said quietly. Her eyes lifted, tired, unguarded, something breaking through the discipline she wore like armor. For a heartbeat, we didn't breathe. The distance between us vanished. Her lips parted, half a word, half a breath, and then the sound of the back door slammed shut again. She flinched, stepping back like the moment had burned her. I can't, she whispered. But when she turned to go, she hesitated at the end of the aisle, hand resting on a stack of books. You'll be here next week? She asked, without looking back. Always. And though her back was turned, I saw her nod, once, almost invisible, like she was giving in to something she already knew she couldn't stop. The next Friday, the library was nearly empty, a storm had chased everyone home early. The rain hit the windows in steady bursts, the sound wrapping the room in something private. Clara stood by the tall window, her cardigan pulled around her, watching the parking lot shimmer with water. When she turned, her expression softened just slightly, like she'd been expecting me even though she hadn't said so. You shouldn't have come in this weather, she said. You say that every week. And you never listen. I smiled. Maybe I like the noise. Makes everything else quieter. She glanced at the rain again. Some silences aren't peaceful. Something in her tone had changed, not defensive this time, just tired. I walked closer, close enough to smell the faint trace of her perfume mixed with rain and paper. She looked up at me. You keep doing this. Doing what? Looking at me like that. Like what? Like you see something I'm trying to hide. Her voice cracked a little at the end. It wasn't weakness, it was honesty. I can't help it, I said. You make it impossible not to. She let out a shaky laugh, then sighed. You're too young to mean things like that. And you're too smart to pretend you don't want to hear them. That stopped her. The rain filled the pause. Clara, I said softly, stepping closer, do you ever think maybe this isn't a mistake? She blinked, once, twice, and then whispered, you don't know what I've already lost. Her hand went to the side of the desk, fingers gripping the edge. I wanted to ask, lost who? Lost what? But she shook her head like she could read the question forming. This job, this town, they're my second chance at quiet. I can't, she didn't finish. I reached up before I could stop myself, brushed a strand of hair from her face. My fingers barely grazed her cheek, but the contact made her eyes close for a second. When she opened them again, she didn't step back. You shouldn't, she whispered. I know. Then why are you? Because you keep looking at me like that too. She drew in a breath, sharp, unsteady. The lightning flashed, white light flickering over the shelves, over us. She turned her face toward me, so close I could feel her breath, warm and uneven. My hand rested against the counter beside hers, her fingers trembled, then stilled. This isn't fair, she said, voice trembling. Maybe not, I said. But it's real. Her lips parted just slightly. Tell me to stop, I whispered. She didn't. The rain pounded harder, a low rumble of thunder underneath it. Her hand rose, barely, until her fingertips brushed the back of mine. The smallest, most dangerous touch. And then, the power flickered, lights dimmed. We both froze in the dark, inches apart. When the lights came back, her eyes were wet, not from tears, maybe just the rain's reflection. She exhaled, shaky. If we cross this line, she said, we don't go back. I'm already there, I said. And then, a knock echoed at the front door. She flinched, pulling her hand away like it burned. We turned, breathless. The door creaked open. Clara, a voice called, the same man as before. Her eyes found mine again, wide, terrified, wanting. Don't say anything, she whispered. But it was too late, everything that mattered had already been said. The man at the door wasn't the custodian this time. It was Evan, one of Clara's co-workers, younger than I expected, probably mid-30s, familiar in a way that felt wrong. He held a soaked folder under his arm. You left your phone on the counter, he said, eyes flicking between us. It's been ringing. Clara froze. Her lips parted like she wanted to thank him, but nothing came out. She looked at the folder, then at me, a silent warning to stay quiet. Evan stepped inside, shaking the rain from his hair. Storm's worse than it looked. Then, softer, you okay? It wasn't a casual question. His tone carried history. I'm fine, she said too quickly. Just, closing up. He looked at her for a beat too long, then at me. You one of her volunteers? Something like that, I said. Clara's voice broke the tension. He's helping with the cataloging project, she said, calm, too calm. Thanks for bringing that. Evan nodded slowly, his eyes narrowing like he didn't buy it. Right. Cataloging. He handed her the phone and lingered near the door. See you Monday, Clara. When he left, the silence didn't settle right. It buzzed, alive, wrong, full of everything we hadn't said. Clara stared at the door long after it closed. Then she turned on me, her voice low and shaking. You can't keep showing up like this. What did I do? You exist, that's what you did. Her words hit sharp, but her hands betrayed her, clenched, restless. He's been asking questions, she said, almost whispering. About you. About us. There is no us, I said, but even hearing it out loud felt like a lie. She laughed once, bitter, thin. You think I don't know what this looks like? A woman my age, a boy who stares too long, I'm not a boy. The words came out harder than I meant. She looked up at me, startled. I'm not, I repeated. You keep pretending this is one-sided, but you're the one who keeps standing closer every time. Her jaw tensed. Don't twist this. I stepped toward her. She didn't move away this time. Tell me I'm wrong, I said. Her breath quickened. You don't understand the cost. Then explain it. I can't. The way she said it, half desperation, half confession, made the room tilt. The storm outside cracked again, a flash of white slicing through the glass. She pressed her hands to her temples. You don't know who he is, she whispered. Evan. She hesitated. We used to live together. It ended badly. The words hit harder than I expected. Oh. I told you, she said softly, I can't ruin another life because I can't keep my distance. I took a step back, but she followed. Then why are you standing closer? Her hand brushed my arm, unintentional, but it lingered. Because I can't stop, she said. The confession hung between us, small, fragile, irreversible. I swallowed. Then don't. Her eyes flicked to the door, then back to me, torn between fear and something stronger. Finally, she said, tomorrow. Not here. Where? She hesitated, then whispered, you'll know. And just like that, she walked past me, close enough that her shoulder brushed mine, close enough to feel the warmth she tried to leave behind. The rain kept falling, but something else had already broken loose. The next day wasn't a Friday. It was Saturday, gray sky, thin drizzle, the kind of cold that clings to you. I found her at the old reading room on the edge of town, the one they'd closed months ago for renovations. She'd left the side door unlocked. Inside, it smelled of dust and wood polish. The lights were off. Only the rain outside the tall windows gave the room its shape. She was sitting at one of the long tables, her coat draped over the chair, a half-empty mug beside her. When she saw me, she didn't look surprised, just relieved, like something she'd been bracing for had finally arrived. "You found it," she said quietly. "You wanted me to." She didn't answer. Just gestured for me to sit, though I didn't. I stayed standing across from her, unsure what to do with my hands. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The air was thick, restless. "I shouldn't have asked you to come," she said finally. "This isn't fair." "You keep saying that," I said. "And you keep calling me anyway." Her eyes flicked up, sharp, then soft. "You make it sound easy. It's not." I moved around the table, slowly. She stayed seated, but her breathing changed, deeper now, quieter. "Clara," I said, "I'm not here because I don't understand what this means. I'm here because I do." Her hand trembled slightly when she lifted the mug. "You don't know what it's like to lose everything because of one mistake. Then don't let this be one." She laughed softly, tired, almost breaking. "You make it sound like we get to decide." I was close enough now to see the faint pulse at her throat. The rain blurred against the windows behind her, a soft percussion that filled every pause. She looked up, eyes glassy but steady. "If I let this happen," she whispered, "I stop being the version of me that people still trust. And if you don't?" Her gaze faltered. "Then I go back to pretending I don't feel alive when you walk in." I reached out, barely touching her hand where it rested on the table. Her fingers twitched, then laced around mine, hesitant, unsure, but there. "You think this ends clean?" she said. "It doesn't. It never does." "I don't want clean," I said. "I just want honest." Her breath hitched. She stood slowly, our hands still joined. For a second, the world went still, just her eyes, her closeness, the scent of rain on her hair. "This is the part," she said, voice shaking, "where I'm supposed to let go." "You could," I whispered. "Or you could stay." For a long heartbeat, she didn't move. Then she leaned in, not enough to erase the space, just enough to let her forehead rest against mine. Her voice was barely a breath. "We can't go back after this." "I know." The silence that followed wasn't empty, it was full, like something had finally broken open. When she finally stepped away, her eyes met mine, steady, sure. "Then at least," she said softly, "let it mean something." And for the first time, neither of us tried to stop what had already begun. The storm had passed by morning. The world smelled new, wet leaves, cold air, and the faint sweetness that comes after thunder. The reading room was still quiet. Light poured through the tall windows now, soft and gold, falling across the floorboards where we'd stood last night. Clara sat by the window, her hair still damp, her hands wrapped around a cup of tea. When I walked in, she looked up, no surprise this time, no flinching, no pretending. "You came back," she said. "I wasn't sure if I should." "Neither was I," she said, with a small, tired smile. "But here you are." There was no more tension in her voice, just a kind of calm I hadn't heard before, the sound of someone who'd finally stopped fighting themselves. I sat across from her. For a moment, we just listened, to the ticking of an old clock, to the birds outside testing the morning. She set the cup down. "Do you ever think," she began, "that maybe some things don't have to last forever to matter?" I nodded. "I think that's what makes them matter." Her eyes softened. "You're too young to sound that sure. Or maybe I just learned from you." That made her laugh, really laugh, for the first time since I'd met her. The sound filled the room in a way the silence never could. "I used to think age gave you control," she said. Turns out it just teaches you what not to admit. Then stop pretending, I said. Her hand reached across the table, hesitated, then rested on mine. Not uncertain this time. Just gentle. Certain. We stayed like that, saying nothing. Her thumb brushed over my knuckles, slow, absent, like she was memorizing the shape of the moment. I don't know what happens after this, she said finally. Neither do I. Does that scare you? A little, I said. But not as much as never knowing. She exhaled, quiet, steady. Then she stood and came around to where I was sitting. Her hand slipped into my hair, fingers tracing lightly against my temple before resting on the back of my neck. It wasn't a kiss. It wasn't need. It was something quieter, understanding, release, maybe love in its truest form, simple, unguarded. When she leaned her forehead against mine, her voice was a whisper. Maybe we stopped trying to define it. Maybe we just let it be, I said. She smiled, that small, secret smile that had started all of this. Outside, the rain had thinned to a mist. The world beyond the window looked softer now, like everything had found its place again. I reached for her hand. She didn't pull away. We sat there in the light, two people who'd been strangers once, then something else entirely, not forever, maybe not even long, but enough. And for the first time, that was all either of us needed. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?